Okay, so the things that we're going to talk about today, international connectivity, infrastructure availability, transport and IP transit pricing, which really has a dramatic impact on, I think, the opportunity that Istanbul has, the colocation market briefly, and also regional interconnection potential. For international connectivity, I think one of the stats that Ivo put up was that there are 4.2 terabits of international internet bandwidth connecting Istanbul. A key point there is that really dwarfs many of the countries in the Middle East region in particular, and is nearly 3 times as much as what connects Saudi Arabia or UAE, just to put that in perspective. It's among one of the 15 highest international bandwidth countries in Europe. And it continues to grow. I think one of the other points that I would like to make is that growth in Istanbul has actually slowed a bit, but that's because of the actual scale of the capacity. In 2011, when the bandwidth was quite low, growth rates were approximately 85%. We've now declined to about 22%. Why is that important? What does that mean that it's declining? Well, not really. If you look at 2013 to 2015, we added 1.6 terabits of new international internet backbone capacity to the marketplace, more than actually existed in 2011. So certainly growth rates will slow as the total bandwidth scales. One of the things we look at are connections to Turkey by region. It's really important to recognize the reliance of Turkey to Western Europe. If you look at all the routes, about 90% of international internet bandwidth routes from Turkey go to Western Europe. One of the really important things is the reliance on Frankfurt. I mean, it's interesting that Frankfurt's on the end of this call, or this presentation, in that Istanbul, the links between Istanbul and Frankfurt are about 1.5 terabits, and that's more than twice the next largest link to any other city. When we look at the local market, it's really important to look at what the opportunity in Turkey is. What kind of opportunity in traffic growth will grow domestically. Over the last 5 years, subscriber growth actually has been quite modest. And if you look at a compound annual growth rate, it's really only been about 5% within the Turkish market. The important part, I think, is the services that are available to those users and how they grow. If you look at the average bandwidth per user, what we've seen is that the average subscriber bandwidth has grown by 15%. So if you put those two together, you're looking at growth rates exceeding 20%. If you know TeleGeography, we do beautiful wall maps, and if you're interested in one, please let me know. We can get you one. But I think what this slide demonstrates is the confluence of infrastructure that comes towards Istanbul. There's quite a mix, whether it be terrestrial networks coming eastward from Western Europe, infrastructure coming terrestrially through the Middle East, and then submarine cable systems. In the domestic market, we have Turk Telekom International, Super Online, but we also have international players represented, such as Deutsche Telekom, Interroute, and Verizon. For submarine cable systems, one of the things that we have, CME 3, everybody knows that, Med Nautilus, very well established in the marketplace. Some of the older systems, KFOS, Tercios 1 and 2, obviously serving a specific need for specific locations. I think one of the biggest things when we look forward is the opportunity for that CME 5 presents. Not only does it provide a diverse route to Europe for the marketplace, basically not having complete reliance on the terrestrial routes onwards to Frankfurt, for instance. But what it also presents is interconnectivity with 18 countries around the world, spanning from Europe to Asia. The other thing that I want to point out, and it's really important to the analysis that we do, are the terrestrial routes and the opportunities that they present. If you look at the map, there are a couple of systems there that are not fully active. If you look at Jati, if you look at RCN, what they were designed to do was to provide circumvention of the Suez Canal and provide a diverse path. Due to complications in Syria, obviously they're not fully interconnected into Turkey, but one would expect that over the next year or years that will come to fruition. The other thing that's interesting, I think, GBI North coming through Iraq. There are a number of other systems that are proposed for development in Iraq that will connect the submarine cable systems onward to the Turkish border. And the thing that I've learned about probably over the last couple days is a lot of the investment going into Iran, and sort of this interest in the stability of Iran as a potential provider. So when you talk to some of the submarine cable providers in the Gulf region, they're looking at that as a real opportunity to route traffic that they're picking up on some of their new systems, whether it be BVG or others, and carry that through the Gulf, because they see that, one, as a diverse path to what they can carry through the Suez, but also something that is a high value product, something that delivers low latency. One of the things when you have competition is you have price erosion, and I think that's just a fact of the industry. It's really quite interesting as the number of players come online and the number of investment that's made. Really, technology dictates how fast prices will fall. And as we've seen new technology enter the market, whether it be new DWM, new fibers lit, and again, new competition, prices have continued to erode. This really demonstrates sort of how quickly, and I would even say some of these prices are pretty high. If you look at mid-year 2015, the median price for a 10 gig wave Istanbul-Frankfurt was about $20,000. If you buy bulk, of course, you can get a much better price, and I'm sure that there are operators that will entertain those options. But the point is that prices between the main European hubs and Istanbul have fallen. And what does that mean? What that means is that because you have a layer 1 and 2 price erosion, layer 3 prices can also come down. Ooh. There we go. So for IP transit, which is really what everyone wants to come to the region to procure, the point is that it needs to be competitive with alternatives. And what you've seen is because transport prices have declined, IP transit prices has also declined. So that creates a real opportunity, I think, in the region. When you compare Istanbul to other markets, whether it be Dubai, whether it be East in Asia, in Singapore, you see that Istanbul is about 20 to 30% of what you would pay in the Middle East. In Singapore, it's about half of what you would pay in Singapore. So there's a real attraction to come to something that provides low latency and low cost. The advantage to being competitive with Frankfurt, now we may not expect it to be in the 50 to 60 euro cent range anytime soon, but if it's competitive, then the latency discussion becomes much more important. If you can get better latency and better performance, and you don't have to pay for the transport cost onwards into Frankfurt, then Istanbul becomes an interesting proposition. For the colocation and data center market, historically, Turkish operators have gone to Frankfurt. It's been where they've connected to other carriers. It's been where they've connected to content providers. I think the evolution of the data center in this market locally really starts to create new opportunities for them. The domestic Turkish market has been largely driven by Turk Telecom, by Turkcell Tupur Online. Other carrier-neutral providers include Koç System and Rodore. But I think the entrance in the market from some of the other international players really demonstrates what opportunities can be here. We've seen Telecity Group, Telehouse, Verizon Terramark, I think is Evo presented. A new German operator called Zimium just opened up a facility here. And you know, new competition and new opportunity really will help this marketplace. And the final point I wanted to make, we talked about some of the terrestrial routes. The transit market, or the opportunity, I think, in Istanbul can't just be focused on the domestic market, although we very much expect that to grow significantly. It also has to capture a lot of the new traffic that's going to come from developing markets within the region. And that can be from the Middle East, traffic emanating and coming westward through the terrestrial routes, but it can also come from the Caucasus. And if you look at routes here, if you look at Azerbaijan, Iraq, Armenia, you're looking at compound annual growth rates over the last 5 years in excess of 100%. 100%. In the case of Azerbaijan and Iraq, in Armenia, it's about 89%. So these are dramatic growth rates and new opportunities, I think, to capture that traffic. And if you can keep it locally, rather than taking it all the way back to Frankfurt or Amsterdam, one, they get a better performance, and then second, they get an opportunity to not have to carry that extra transport fee. So the final point I wanted to make, I think within this market there's ample capacity supply. I've demonstrated that prices are competitive and getting more so. And the physical location, I think, is really important for Istanbul. The DE-CIX Istanbul fulfills the need for a neutral interconnection point in the region, and I think will service the bridge between Europe and Asia quite well. Thank you.